My name is Michelle Clark. For those of you who don't know who I am, I head up Talent Dynamics, and we're actually hosting the world's first trust conference based in London in September this year. So this is one of the very first webinars that we're running in a series where we're bringing to you some of the top speakers from the Trust Conference and giving you a sneak preview of what they do and how they do it, and giving you an opportunity almost to have a one-to-one interview with them. And we've given you the opportunity to send your questions in advance. We've got lots of questions being sent in from this for this webinar, which I'm hoping we can get through as many as we can. I've put some together on your behalf as well, and there will be a chance for you to ask some live as well. So Daniel's a serial entrepreneur. He's extremely successful. He's built many, many very, very successful brands. He's got the KPI brand now, which is about being a key person of influence. This business is all across the UK. It's in Australia. It's across the US as well. It's extremely successful, working with business owners, entrepreneurs, key business leaders, and people in organizations to really help them build these very, very strong, trusted personal brands where their businesses are just growing and growing. And he just has a very, very successful events and training company. So really excited to have him on the call. And Daniel, hello.
Hey Michelle, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Obviously, you picked that picture from a couple of years ago where I was doing the big noisy T-shirt under the jacket thing.
I thought you were going to say where you look much younger, because I was going to say you always look young.
Yeah, I did.
And Daniel here,
trying to look like a tech entrepreneur at the time.
Well, you obviously definitely did, and we've got a picture of one of your books here. I know you're a best-selling author, To Become a Key Person of Influence, and also of the Entrepreneur Revolution. We've got this particular book here because for some people who are on the call this evening, they're going to get an opportunity to get a free copy of your book as well. I read this book a few years ago, absolutely loved it, thought it was fantastic. Gave copies to all my friends, and then recently I was at an event, a speed reading event, where I was learning how to speed read. You'd think the speed I speak at, I probably read quite quickly anyway. And I got to read your book in about 2.5 hours on the workshop, so I got to read it all over again just a few weeks ago, which was great. So,
I love that.
Daniel, tell us a bit about yourself. You've built this amazing business. It's growing at a tremendous speed all across the UK, the US, and Australia. Well done on that. It's just amazing, particularly in today's day and age. Tell us more about what it is that you do and why you do that.
Okay, so my background is in entrepreneurship. I started out as an entrepreneur at age 21. I'd done 2 years working very closely with a successful entrepreneur from 19 to 21, and I was very much in his shadow for those 2 years, pretty much working non-stop 7 days a week, learning everything I could, and I was working very closely. Right time, right place, right economy. I started in business and it really took off. So I ended up doing over $1 million a year in the first year in business.
Wow.
And then about 3 years later, we were doing $1 million a month in sales that our team was generating, and basically built an Australia-wide business that was you know, in rapid growth. Came over to the UK in 2006, set a challenge to launch a training organisation in London. Once again, it was actually 2006 wasn't a bad time to kick off. Right time, right place, right economy, and we kicked off and did about 2 to 4, built a business to about 2 to 4 million a year in revenue. And today, I've had a few business exits now, and where we've sold a business, and been involved in sort of some turnaround businesses and that sort of stuff. Today, my main focus is working on an entrepreneur growth accelerator. Each year we take 600 entrepreneurs in Australia, UK and USA, and we take them through a 9-month program where we develop them in 5 areas to improve their business. We get them working with ultra high net worth business leaders, people who have built multi-million, sometimes multi-billion pound businesses or dollar businesses. And business leaders from different disciplines. We're a Institute of Leadership and Management training provider, as well as being a good introduction to different resources and networks. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background.
Wow. Now, I know you call these people KPIs, which obviously is not a key performance indicator.
No, just to confuse people, yeah. I decided upon an acronym that needed explaining. Maybe that's why we've grown so fast, because people go around explaining it to people.
So tell us, what is a KPI? Who is a KPI and what defines them?
So a key person of influence is basically, in every industry we know that there are key people of influence, and in bigger companies within the organization itself there are key people of influence. So a key person of influence, sometimes they're called a rainmaker, or an influencer. Sometimes they're called an expert or a personality. But essentially a key person of influence within any industry is the person who stands out. They're the one who have a personal brand, they're known, they get a lot of inbound inquiries, their names tend to come up in conversations as associated with a particular niche. They tend to command a higher income because they're more in demand personally, even though sometimes they're not necessarily the best. Because they're well known and well liked, they're in demand. So they earn a lot more money. They tend to be the ones who have a lot more fun. They get invited to those parties and events and those sorts of things as well.
Yeah.
So essentially what's happening is that in every industry there's this inner circle of about 10% of, the inner 10%, and statistically they earn exponentially more money than the rest of the industry. So, here's the classic example. The classic example is Jamie Oliver. So Jamie Oliver is definitely the key person of influence in the food industry, and earns tens of millions per year, as opposed to a normal chef who might earn 50 to 100,000 per year if they're a great chef. And there's a lot of examples. You can find examples in every industry, accounting and graphic design, or all of those. So you go around different industries, you'll spot the key person of influence.
And obviously that's not the criteria for people coming on your program in the first instance. This is the outcome of what they get by going through your program. So what kind of people are getting involved in the KPI program?
So what we do is we work with people who have very good hard skills or functional skills within their industry. So if you imagine someone who's very good at what they do, they've got all the technical skills and the functional skills, they've got the qualifications or the experience in order to be very proficient at what they do. And what we do is we work with them on the soft skills. So getting another degree or another qualification or another master's or another year in business isn't necessarily the thing that creates a big transformation. What we've found is that there's 5 soft skills that create transformation for people to become a key person of influence. So the first one is pitching. We see that key people of influence are very good at pitching. They're great at pitching an idea, getting buy-in. They have great pitching skills, whether it's natural or learned. The next one is publishing content. So key people of influence are normally the ones to publish blogs, articles, and even books. The third one is products. They make very good product decisions. So key people of influence are either developing products that are leading edge, or they're aligning themselves to leading edge products. So even someone like Roger Federer, he doesn't develop his own products, but he aligns himself to things like Rolex and Credit Suisse as products that he's aligned to, and has actually recently partnered up with Nike to develop some Roger Federer products as well. So there's products. The fourth one is building profile. Profile, a great test of profile is if someone is Googled, if they're asked to speak at conferences, if they're up on stage, or if they're featured in the media, or if they've got a great profile when you Google them online, that's profile. And then the fifth soft skill is the soft skill of partnership and the ability to create partnerships and bringing people together and get long-term commitments and long-term agreements. So the 5 were pitching, publishing, products, profile, and partnership.
All right, awesome. And with all those 5 areas that create a KPI, like how do you go about actually helping someone get through all those 5 areas? What's the way that you do this?
So there's a lot of what we call best practices in each one of those areas. So there are best practices in pitching. There's a way of pitching any idea that makes people want to buy in, that makes people get excited. There's actually a pitching framework. There's best practices in all of these areas. So what we've done is we've identified a series of best practices in those 5 areas, and then we apply those best practices to anyone across. We've probably worked with about 60 to 70 different industries now, and we don't mind if you've got the soft skill, if you've got the technical skills, we can then add those soft skills. And actually, we do a combination of 4 things. We do best practices, we do introductions and networking. So introducing you to people who are great at those things. We do accountability, so we actually help people, hold them accountable to achieving certain distinctions in those areas. And then we do access to resources, where we open up the ability to open up resources to people who need them.
And I know you also run some really big events. I've been to a lot of your events. They're amazing events. And I should just point out to everyone at this point that, Daniel, this probably isn't the best timing for you to be running a webinar, even though it's great for us, because you've got a massive event on tomorrow in London actually talking about these things, right?
Do we?
I've seen a few emails about it, so I think so.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, we get about 500 people tomorrow at the event in London.
And where's that going to be held, just in case folks want to know the details about that?
People can go to keypersonofinfluence.com, and then there's a button that says UK, and all the details are there.
Great, and those events are really amazing. I've been to a number of them. It's like just to turn up and learn so much in one day. So if you're sitting and listening, you're going to be around in London tomorrow, I definitely recommend you get along. So tell me about some of the KPIs that you're actually working with when they get these 5 areas and they're working through these programs. What sort of results do you see that they're now experiencing?
So what's really powerful is when we see someone who's incredibly good at what they do, who then apply the soft skills. So I'll give you a really small example, and then I'll give you a bigger example. So a small example is we worked with a number of fitness trainers who are very, very good at fitness training and personal training and all that sort of stuff. One of our first clients was a guy called Lazo Freeman. Lazo Freeman, he was an international bodybuilding champion, very successful as an athlete. But when people would ask him, what do you do? He would say, I'm a personal trainer, a fitness trainer. And he would earn about £50 an hour as a fitness trainer. So we simply changed his pitch, for example. So his pitch was, I'm a fitness trainer, and then we changed it to, I do radical 12-week body transformations for men who do incredible things in a boardroom but ordinary things in a bedroom. And, and
there's a pitch.
That was the pitch. In one sentence, he had captured everyone's attention. And his income, he developed articles that he had written. He developed a DVD series and products. He did some partnerships with supplement companies. And his income went from about $50,000 a year to today over £300,000 per year.
Wow!
As a solopreneur, someone who's working on his own, and he's now seen definitely as a key person of influence within his niche.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so that's a fairly basic.
That's a basic example.
Yeah, solopreneur.
I can't wait to the big one. I was just going to say I was working out with my PT this morning, Tracy, down the gym, and she said, what are you doing today? And I said, oh, would you believe it, I'm running this interview with Daniel, and I was telling her the story, and I told her the story about Lazo, and I said, you should check him out. She said, check him out, I'm going to come on the webinar. So I bet she's listening right now and is now looking all his details up as well. And that was your basic example. Okay, tell me the doozy.
Well, I mean, at a top level, we've worked with companies that are turning over millions of pounds. And when you get the CEO of the organization, so we worked with a large financial planning company that does financial planning advice in the UK. They've gone from, I think, 3 or 4 million right up to about 5 or 6 million in a very short space of time. And it really comes down to, across the board, they taught pitching to every single, they've got 55 people on the team, they taught pitching to everyone on the team.
Wow.
They made sure every single person, bottom to top, could pitch. They've got a culture now where everyone is expected to write articles and documents and have them flying around to be used with the business. They've got a culture where everyone has to understand their core product and their product for prospects, and they actually put a product architecture in every division. And they got out of service level thinking and into productized thinking. They raised the profile of the CEO, they raised the profile of some other rainmakers within the business, and then they started doing partnerships. And it was so effective that they actually scrapped their 360 review process in exchange for using the 5 Ps as their 360 reviews. So when they do peer reviews now, they actually use the 5 P's as the basis, where basically people do a 360 review on those 5 things. Can this person pitch? Have they published anything in the last month? Do they understand their product? Have they got profile in the organisation and out of the organisation? And are they viewing everyone as in the spirit of partnership? And it's been really transformational.
Yeah. That's an amazing story. I mean, the way that, like, to go and work for an organization like that, to be inducted into a company like that, to be recruited specifically, that must be like a whole top-to-toe process they've got going on now, and a complete cultural feel of trust, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, these guys are in rapid growth. I mean, their main issue at the moment is keeping up with growth and making sure that they can deliver quality at every step. But they're oversubscribed. And they're just in the position where they're now picking and choosing who they want to work with.
So just hearing those two very, very different stories, and both really impressive. I know you've got loads more. I've seen on your YouTube channel loads of really amazing stories. But just those two in particular makes me think about, I know the audience we've got on the call this evening is a mixed audience. We're definitely going to have a group of entrepreneurs on this call who are business owners and maybe some solopreneurs, and we're also going to have a group of people on this call who have senior positions in corporate organizations, both of whom will be wondering, well, what does it take to be a KPI? Is it a different process to be a KPI in those two marketplaces, or as you just said, is it a case of just taking those 5 principles and adapting them whoever you are?
Within large corporations, when you see a big corporate that goes through growth and has that exciting electricity of transformation going through it, it's almost always because there is a person who's doing the key person of influence role really well. So if you take a look at someone like, I mean, the classic is someone like Richard Branson, who's publishing books every year, who's always putting the customer first in the product process and the service process, who's got an incredible profile, who knows how to stay on message, and who thinks partnership and win-win with everyone around. That key person of influence lifts the whole organization. We see Steve Jobs and others playing that role really convincingly and really powerfully. If you want to even scale down within the business units of any corporation, you'll find that it's key people of influence who drive innovation and who drive that energy within and that spark within a company. And it's key people of influence who rise quickly in an organization, who get promoted faster, who get invited to be at those those events, and who are considered to be the rainmakers and who can often write their own terms. So it's I've seen this work inside an organization, because inside of every organization are key people of influence. Outside of in every industry are key people of influence as well. I've seen that there's some very famous examples just recently. You see the chief operations officer at Facebook has just released a book called Lean In, and she's positioning herself as a key person of influence to attract highly talented women to Facebook.
It's amazing how quickly that's happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And her personal brand has gone right up there with Mark Zuckerberg's brand.
Yeah,
and the more key people of influence are within an organization, the more stable that organization is and the more opportunities flowing around that organization.
So senior leaders listening in, this isn't just something specifically for them, but it's how they can actually create this as a culture within their organization as well.
Yeah, and a true leader who creates key people of influence around them, I mean, their leadership goes through the roof. It's a bit counterintuitive. A lot of leaders think, well, if I was to promote and encourage key people of influence, maybe that takes the limelight off me. But in actual fact, it's when you see a group of people who are key people of influence together, they all appear to be at a higher level.
I was thinking about that as you were saying, and I was thinking, I was comparing it to the behaviors that you see on The Apprentice. I mean, I can't watch the program anymore because the behavior is so terrible. It's the total opposite. And yet they think that by competing with one another and by putting each other down, that they're going to rise to the top and be the most successful. But actually what seems to happen is it puts people actually off them, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that show is so radically removed from entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's just good television. I think that sometimes they just vote the people off who make boring television and keep the ones on who are probably making the best TV ratings.
So thinking about people who really are those trusted KPIs right now, why do you think that being trusted in your industry is now more important than ever before?
Well, it's a lot more important than ever before, because technology is leveraging influence and leveraging trust. So if you know, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, if you made a silly mistake, you know, if it wasn't newsworthy and the mainstream media didn't pick it up, you could probably get away with it. And even if it did make mainstream media, it was, you know, it was kind of, you know, it was the daily news, and then maybe the story kicks on for a few days, and then it fizzles out, and then a month later, you know, we're all on to different things. The problem we have today is that if you annoy one customer, that one person can go blogging and tweeting and making videos and all sorts of horrible things against you, and actually really kick up a real storm online. And you know, that stuff sticks around. It's not stuff that actually goes away quickly. I mean, let's have a look at this week. We've got a 29-year-old IT guy who defects from the NSA and the CIA. He takes some documents with him, and he damages the trust of an entire government. So you got, I mean, this is the first time in history where a 29-year-old individual can literally expose and damage trust for, you know, for a big organization like that, and you know, and can go online and publish all sorts of things, and you know, and that's not going to go away quickly. I mean, I've had probably 6 or 7 emails today of people petitioning for you know, for people to offer him help and support. And if this call goes blank, you know, you and I both know why. So
could just be you and I speaking right now.
Someone's listening. Yeah. So if we go back to an organization, technology is leveraging your trust and your influence globally, and it's not letting it go away. So it's really important that you get this stuff right, because when you lose trust, I mean, it's game over now. You might as well you might as well write off the next couple of years as just going to go sideways, or you might as well start from scratch, or you know, I mean, it's a really terrible thing. Once you lose that trust, I mean, you take
it's much harder work.
It's really, I mean, it's taken you know, Tiger Woods, for example. I mean, he had $1 billion brand, which was absolutely, you know, destroyed, obviously for good reason, but you know, destroyed that brand, and you know, it's not going to go away. It's you know, it's you know, he can't win those same big sponsorship deals like he used to.
People will talk about that for years and years to come, no matter how hard he tries and how many more championships he wins, right?
Yeah.
So what do you recommend that your KPIs do specifically to increase the level of trust that their clients and their peers and partners in the industry have in them?
So I'll talk about just 2 things. One is about consistency. You know, trust is not necessarily all about just simply being a goody two-shoes all the time and putting on an act all the time, but it's about being consistent. I'll give you a great example. Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, is not your typical politician. He looks funny. He's got funny hair. And he says the most ridiculous things. I mean, you know, he had journalists uncover the fact that he earns $250,000 a year to write a weekly column in the Telegraph, and he comes out and they say, Boris, you earn $140,000 a year as mayor and $250,000 a year as in the Telegraph. What do you have to say? And he says, oh well, it's all chicken feed. And any other politician would have been absolutely, you know, hung, drawn, and quartered.
Sent to Coventry.
But because it's Boris, because it's consistent to his brand, and because he is consistent, we just laugh and we say, oh, you know, oh, that's Boris, and he's just, you know, he's being Boris. He's consistent. And funny thing is that I mean, my girlfriend loves Boris, thinks he's hilarious, and you know, but it's because he's consistent. So that's a huge thing. It's about being consistent. It's about picking, a way of being, and it's also about being authentic, because it's very difficult to be inauthentic consistently.
That's true. Yeah.
Authenticity plays a huge role here. And what I like, to stick on that example, what we like about Boris is we get the sense that he's authentic. We get the sense that he's not making this stuff up. He really does joke around, and he really, that's kind of how he is. The next one I'm going to talk about is, so authenticity was the first one. The next one I'm going to talk about is accessibility. So accessibility is a strange one, that people basically want to be able to find out lots and lots about you in real time. So on the day that they hear about you, or the minute they hear about you, they want to be able to read blogs, look at videos, maybe listen to a recording, maybe they want to read a book, read an article. They want to check out your LinkedIn profile. They want to look at your tweets. So they want to be able to get a snapshot of you really quickly, and they might want to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning for some, some time zone or some reason. Yeah. So the next thing about, making sure you're making the most of these times that we're in is to ensure you have accessibility, that if people are looking for you, they can find you. And that they can check out a video, they can have a look at a slide presentation, they can basically go around having a look and seeing all sorts of information about you. That's just two things. There's more to the story than that. But for the scope of this sort of a quick webinar, those would be two really good takeaways.
Well, that's awesome. So those are specific things people can do to increase trust. How do the KPIs measure that those things are actually giving them the level of trust in their market and organization? What's the output that they see when they do all that activity?
So the way you would measure it is basically if you're highly trusted, there's a few things that tend to show up. The first one is speed, and this is talked about in Stephen Covey's book, where he actually calls the book The Speed of Trust. And the first thing is if you've got a lot of trust, the speed at which things can happen is much faster. So people don't slow things down, they just trust that it's going to work out. So the speed of making a sale, the speed of putting together a partnership, the speed of getting through to another decision maker, so everything increases its speed. The next one would be the size. So you go from doing small deals to bigger deals. You go from talking to 10 people to talking to 100 people, or talking to a media audience. And then the other one is time horizon. People commit to you for longer. So you find that people, rather than being transactional with you, where they try and do something one at a time or just a quick transaction, they actually show more interest in working with you long term in maybe a partnership or an ongoing service agreement or an ongoing contract. They become, a fan of what it is that you're doing, and that they're looking out for you. And the final one, I would guess, is forgiveness. That if you do something wrong, if you're highly trusted, people will forgive you. They trust that your heart's in the right place. They trust that you care, and hence, they give you a bit more grace when you get things wrong. And we all know that people are going to get things wrong, and it's about having a little bit of grace. If you're well trusted, people give you the grace when you get it wrong.
Oh, that's brilliant. So